Shalom and welcome to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. This is a recording of a Shabbat sermon by TBA Rabbinic Intern Nico Losorelli.
So our topic of tonight is wisdom. What is it? And where does it come from? And where did it begin? Who is wise? We speak a lot about wisdom in our tradition. The wisdom of our sages, the wisdom of our biblical ancestors, and the wisdom of modern-day thinkers. The broad swath of wisdom givers often mythologize with a kind of preternatural capability or wise as a result of many years of formal learning might cause one to believe that the capacity for wisdom is either only innate or from a long process of study. We look to our many Jewish texts for wisdom, like our Mishnah Pirkei Avot, which is a collection of wisdom sayings of our early sages of the Rabbinic period, and one statement that I know is core to my life and something that I aspire to, and one that speaks to the often delimited idea of who is wise or who gets to be wise, is a statement by Ben Zoma at the beginning of chapter 4 of Pirkei Avot. Ben Zoma says, Ezehu Chacham, who is wise? Halomed mikol ha'adam, the one who learns from every person. Who is wise, Ben Zoma says? The one who is wise is the one who learns from everyone, which also lends itself naturally to the idea that wisdom is everywhere and with everyone. And the one who is wise is the one who can seek it out wherever it is to be found. This particular statement is a cornerstone of Jewish learning, and while our tradition often lifts up rabbis disproportionately, this particular statement came from someone who actually never gained the title of rabbi. So, if our Mishnah, Pirkei Avot, this collection of wisdom sayings, collects wisdom from rabbis and those who aren't rabbis, then we should believe our tradition and Ben Zoma when it says, the one who is wise is the one who learns from everyone. But this isn't actually the first time that piece of wisdom has been expressed. We find it first in this week's Parashat Yitro. Moses' father-in-law, Yitro, finds Moses settling disputes and questions morning to night for the people and asks him, "What are you doing?" To which Moses replies that he's settling these disputes and clarifying God's commandments to the people. Yitro sees this and says that this is lo tov, this is not good, this is a recipe for burnout, and that Moses ought to appoint judges and advisors to settle the smaller disputes and have the bigger disputes relegated to Moses' desk when those lower courts can't find a solution. A couple of things are going on here. The people just left Egypt and are having to figure out how to govern themselves. And Moses is trying to figure out how to govern. So naturally, as their leader, he continues to take it upon himself to do just that. So what does he do? He looks to what he knows, and what he knows is Pharaoh, someone who was seen as a singular and even divine authority in Egypt. So he begins to act as the sole human source of wisdom, like Pharaoh. Luckily, Yitro intervenes with some sagely advice and saves Moses from replicating the very same system of governance that the people just escaped from. And it's notable that this advice came from Yitro, the Midian high priest, and not from an Israelite or a member of the Erev Rav, the mixed multitude of people who escaped Egypt with the Israelites and the chaos of it all. It stands to reason that if everyone who just left Egypt only knew the pharaonic system of governance, then there was no way in which any of them would have been capable of providing Moses with the counsel that he needed to avoid making the same mistakes as Pharaoh and Egyptian society. No, he needed a new and a fresh perspective. And that wisdom came from a relatively new member of his family, who also came from a completely different culture and way of life. And if it weren't for this fresh perspective and piece of wisdom from someone outside of the Israelite experience, I wonder how differently our story would have played out. And I wonder if Moses hadn't been able to hear that wisdom, how differently things would have gone. So what does this tell us? It tells us that the wise one is the one who seeks out wisdom from each and every person. And it takes true wisdom to lead and lead well. Modern day leaders, both those of maximal and minimal authority, would be wise to heed this advice. Effective leadership means admitting that you're not smart enough to have all the answers, and that wisdom, often life-saving wisdom, is to be found with people from all walks of life, all races, all backgrounds, all sexualities, genders, and so much more. The key to good, responsible, and compassionate governance comes from building a larger tent, not a smaller one. The smaller tent, as Yitro indicates, the smaller the tent, as Yitro indicates, the more likely whatever endeavor over which one presides will fail. And the more likely it is to be lo tov. And if the lesson was taught once in the biblical period with Yitro, and again in the rabbinic period with Ben Zoma, then it doesn't hurt to study up again on the value of seeking wisdom from each and every person.
You've been listening to another in our series of podcasts from Temple Beth Am, a dynamic center for conservative Judaism in Los Angeles. If you enjoy these podcasts, we invite you to write a review on the Apple Podcast site or wherever you get your podcasts. For more information about Temple Beth Am, Los Angeles, go to tbala.org.